Oh, mournful days. Oh, mournful days. You know, in my dog remembrance, I could go back into the 60s and see Jim Brown, a man among boys. They still want to say a man among men. No, a man among boys. This was it. You know, when you get some of your own adherents or you get Tucker Carlson or some yahoos or yay-bobs saying, oh, masculinity this and masculinity that, this was the masculinity. You know, when, what's his face there? The guy from, The Godfather, when Nick Abrasi, he says to the Godfather, I hope you're, I forget who was. You know, it wasn't saying it to Godfather. I did think he was saying to the Godfather about his grandson, but he should have been saying to the mom and the dad. He says, I hope your first, maybe said to Godfather, I hope your first grandchild will be a male offspring, and I hope he will be a masculine child. He says, I hope your first grandchild will be a male, and I hope he will be a masculine male. That's Luca Brasi's thing. That's what Jim Brown was, a man among boys. You know, he tromped and romped and stomped across the football landscape for 9 seasons and then got out and became a movie star. Jim Brown, baby. We're mourning Jim Brown today, 87. He stuck it out to 87. When you were born where he was, it was like 72 was a natural lifespan. 76 maybe for a man. Whatever. Big Jim Brown. Legendary Browns running back Jim Brown dies at 87. Any debate about the greatest player in the NFL history is incomplete if Jim Brown's name isn't included. Brown, whose name is still synonymous with greatness at the running back position more than 50 freaking years after his final NFL game, died Thursday at his home in Los Angeles. His wife told the Associated Press he was 87 years. So this one writer that I'm quoting from said Brown had a nearly immaculate NFL career. He played 9 seasons for the Cleveland Browns. He led the league in rushing 8 times. He was a Pro Bowler all 9 seasons and a first-team All-Pro 8 times. Before he abruptly retired in 1966, that's the most powerful thing you could say about him. I paid my dues. I gave it up. I let them crucify me. I let them destroy me. The NFL running back position after 9 years, he says, I got to move on, boys. I'm sorry. I got other shit I want to accomplish. He retired in 1966. He was a first ballot Hall of Famer, inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in 1971. Brown's legacy included civil rights advancement. Brown was more than a football player, this writer states. He was a civil rights activist, putting together the famous Ali Summit in 1967 that included Muhammad Ali, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, and Jim Brown. The New York Times said, the moment itself will be remembered as the first and last, Jimmy Boy, Jim Big Brown, the first and last time so many African-American athletes that at that level came together to support a single controversial cause. Big Jim Brown, you know. Jim Brown founded the Black Economic Union in the 1960s, way ahead of his time. Jim Brown was critical of black athletes like Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods for not doing more to enact social change. They are beneficiaries of our struggle, Big Jimmy said. And, but they don't recognize that because they're inundated with agents, managers, lawyers, and team owners who don't want them to do anything but play ball and hopefully keep themselves out of trouble and just be physical freaks of a nature with no awareness or decision-making power. Jim was a man ahead of his time. Jim was playing shit as if he was a man among boys. Cordell Stewart was kind of like that before they stifled him. Cordell Stewart was like a man among boys. Gale Sayers was a man among boys before he freaking, whatever. He got too many injuries. You got to get a couple of white guys. There got to be a few whites in there to be some man. Maybe Gary Kuzman in basketball. Who knows? I don't think that's the right name. The guy who was a Laker, and he did the NBA thing after him. He was a white, white hope, But, maybe Larry Zonka, run it right up the gut, and nobody can stop you, and you stomp and romp. But he didn't have them stats like Jimmy Brown did, But whatever, it's okay. What I'm saying is, this guy was a phenom. This guy was a super special. This guy was somebody who did it all, including making a bunch of shitty, and possibly a couple good, but mostly shitty or machismo-esque movies. He graduated from the NFL and then made millions of bazillions of dollars, making, beautiful movies, hot dog movies, big movies. The Dirty Dozen, or the guys who are going to go to Iwo Jima and kick some ass. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Brown's views were complicated by some, and who knows. But I'm just going to finish with this quote right here, because Jim Brown was a man among men. Jim Brown was a man among men. When he romped and stomped around on the Cleveland terrain, the terror of Cleveland Browns football stadium, he was a man among boys. And he was the best that there ever was in the era. He didn't have no extra great quarterback. He wasn't like Emmitt Smith, who had the triple crown with, Michael, whatever his name was, and the other guy, the white quarterback. He was it. Maybe he had a good offensive line. I don't know if he had a good offensive line. Whatever. It's okay. He's always had this strain of conservatism in his politics that black people do not achieve advancement through politics but protest, but through the politics of earning as much. Oh, let's try that again. So somebody, I don't even know who's saying this. I'm not. I'm going to try to go to the paragraph before. We're going to close out with this. Like many things about Brown, his political views were complicated. Brown, who was a key figure in the civil rights movement in the 1960s, was outspoken against Colin Kaepernick. Oh, my God, no wonder I couldn't figure that one out. Oh, my God, Jimmy. Jimmy made a mistake maybe this time. And others kneeling during the national anthem. Jim was a little bit conservative. That's okay. All people should love Jim because he was a little conservative and he was liberal in the sense that we have to have civil rights, we have to expand, we have to have more goodness for black people who deserve it. But he was like against Colin Kaepernick, so he, that was how he proved his whole bona fides. That's his flowers. He was against Colin. Nobody should be against Colin. Colin, whatever. Nobody should be against him. But I think Jimmy said about Colin Kaepernick, and this is like hard, you got to include it because that's the thing. You got to include the whole picture so you could nuancely figure the whole freaking shit out for yourself. No one's going to tell you what to think. You got to think for yourself, asshole. But whatever. Jim Brown quoted about Colin Kaepernick. He's always had somebody else said something about Jim Brown about the way he treated Colin Kaepernick. He's always had his strain of conservatism in his politics that black people did not achieve advancement through politics but protest. Maybe this is Jim. We're quoting Jim. We didn't achieve it through politics but protest, Jim said of Colin, but through the politics of earning as much money as possible and trying to get out of the capital system whatever they can for the purposes of building economic self-sufficiency. Oh, okay, so author David Zirin. Don't get mad at me and don't YouTube me, but it's a Jewish guy who wrote that the interaction between these two black men, and that's what I'm quoting like a doofus, because I'm an idiotic, stupid dog. Sometimes people don't realize I'm just a dog, Dogs are not that smart. Just because a dog can talk doesn't mean he's got any extra IQ points. He's still just idiotic, stupid fucking dog, so forgive me. But whatever. So this guy, David Zirin, wrote a bibliography or something about somebody, I don't know, about building economics, whatever. And protest is an impediment to that in the mind of Jim Brown. Okay, this is another dog thing that went off the rails, and I didn't get it done. I couldn't get it right. It's just that's what the dog is. He tells you up front he can't get it right. It's always going to fail. It's always going to be a clusterfuck. It's always going to be stupid. But and those have always been his politics. Something about Jim. God bless. I blew it. This was a blown Jim Brown memorial, a homage to Jim Brown. Jim Brown to me. I'm an idiotic, stupid dog. I could search in my dog remembrance all the greatness about Jim Brown. Jim Brown was a man among boys. Jim Brown was the shit, shizzle, knizzle, whatever it is. Jim Brown was it. And then he went on to prove it over and over again. But I'm just a dipshit, idiotic, stupid dog, so I can't do him justice. But still in all, this is my homage, my homage, my soliloquy, my whatever you say when somebody dies and somebody stands up at their funeral and their epilogue, I don't know. Maybe the guy who always corrects me could figure out what I was trying to say and type it in there. Like when I was trying to say it was the Helsinki syndrome, but it was another kind of syndrome, the Stockholm syndrome. Help me out here. This is a situation where Jim, we're trying to do the eulogy. We're trying to, and maybe they could fact check me. This is the eulogy of the dog of Jim Brown. And, I wish it could have been better. I really, really do, because I loved Jim Brown. And Jim Brown was the shit. And whatever. When you're just not that talented, but you're in the position of the talent, it's like you're the NFL quarterback that ain't that good, and you can't really do that good, but you got the job. This is my job, but shit, I wish I could have done better for Jimmy. I wish I could have done better for Big Jim Brown. Whatever.